After a 36-minute match with Kazuchika Okada, Shingo Takagi won the vacant IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dominion show. A day later, Takagi said, "Waking up this morning and having the belt there in my room let me know that it wasn't all a dream and what happened was real." The IWGP World Heavyweight Championship has a relatively short history. It's only been around since March, and yet we've had 3 champions. How is it that a company known for lengthy title reigns is bouncing its world championship around? What role does Shingo Takagi play now that he's champion? I'm Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBellTime.com, a website and database tracking pro wrestling from around the world. On today's show, we're talking about Shingo Takagi and what he must do to establish the new IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We have headlines from the last 24 hours, Travis Severance is in the house, and this is the Daily Wrestling News Show for June 8th, 2021, where we sort through all of the bullshit in pro wrestling news to find you the truth. And here we are, Travis. Shingo Takagi, you called it.
I did. My soothsaying kicked in finally, and yeah, I felt like this was reading the tea leaves. This is where we were going to be, and I'm happy about it. I'm happy about it because, man, his last 12 months of wrestling has been really difficult for anybody to top from a quality of matches perspective. It's just been one good match after another, and if you went through the body of work for his last 12 months. I don't know that it is a hard one to top, especially given the conditions of the world that he did it during. So
here's the headline: Shingo Takagi used Last of the Dragon to defeat Kazuchika Okada in 36:06 at Dominion from Osaka-jo Hall. This was the third singles match between Takagi and Okada. Okada won the first bout in last year's G1 Climax. Shingo won the second bout in this year's New Japan Cup. And now Shingo Takagi defeated Okada at one of New Japan's signature events, Dominion, and he is the new IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. So, Travis, I mentioned in the intro, this is the third champion since March. The previous 2 champions, Kota Ibushi, he had essentially a 1-month reign. He had the double championship for a while, but he had a 1-month reign as world champion, March 4th to April 4th. Ospreay won April 4th, and he had his last defense on May 4th, and then he forfeited the title 16 days later on May 20th. They both only had one defense. Shingo Takagi has got to turn this boat around, and he was not the chosen guy to do it because he's only champion because of the vacated title from Ospreay. So what does he have to do?
So the nice part about Shingo Takagi coming in the way that he has, and he was really impressive in that G1, and man, he bracket busted me pretty bad with that Okada win in the J Cup. The nice thing about him is the world is his oyster. He's got a whole lot of people that he can wrestle. He doesn't have these long-standing feuds. He's been, inserted here and inserted there. And he's part of the mix every time they do the tournaments, but he's very rarely a highlight. So it's kind of a fresh face. So there's a ton of ways that he can go about establishing himself. He's moving right into Kota Ibushi. Okay, great. You know what? Get back. You got 2 of the 3 guys that have held this belt ever going at it one-on-one. Obviously, he's got to rack up some wins. But he's got all the standout guys in each of the factions that he can take himself through, not counting. And that also includes Tanahashi's out there too. And he could have a good match with Tanahashi as well. Jay White is conspicuously been missing from programming lately. Yep. He kind of called out Finlay and said that that's where he wanted to go with his Never Open, but he really hasn't had any defenses with that either. So I'd have to scratch Jay White off of the immediate go-to, and maybe he's the person that ultimately ends up beating him for the title. But I think Jay White actually cursed that belt. He said they're trying to erase his history. They combined the 2 of them together, and now, it's been bad news bears for anybody that's held the title. But from here, where do they go? My thought is they probably move right into Great Okan / Jeff Cobb as the next place to go as sort of vengeance for the Empire. Will kind of throws his soldiers at him
After
next
Ibushi, you're saying?
after Ibushi. I think we see that is probably the direction that it goes. Either one of those opponents I think would be good. I don't think either one of them takes the title off of him. And then you've also got Suzuki-gun, which Minoru Suzuki Takagi, sign me up. You could also see maybe Zack Sabre. If they want to go interfaction, we got somebody that carried double belts with Naito. We've got Sonata that's there quietly. So there's a whole slew of guys that he can wrestle. I mean, that's 9 months worth of wrestling or so right there laid out for opponents that he hasn't had long-standing feuds with or any kind of feuds with, that he's definitely had some work with. But it's a really fresh face on a guy that's established and can work. So I was just thrilled that we weren't going right back to Okada with another run, and it seems like a bit of a risk and a bit of a gamble. But he certainly has the chops to do it. So it'll be interesting to watch this run. So building up wins and having the belt for a little while is important. What I will say is, unlike Ibushi and unlike Ospreay, he doesn't wrestle that dangerous style that those two do. He's definitely more of a strong style wrestler, or raw. He's actually, if you take a look at him and you compare him to previous champions in New Japan, he is a classic Japanese New Japan wrestler in every way. Just power moves and good stuff, and can deliver a chop and can take a chop. And just a really interesting dragon presentation when he comes down to the ring too.
So one thing that I wanted to mention is Okada was in the running for this, right? But he lost. And I think it's because this new World Championship belt, they want to establish it with a new face. They had Kota Ibushi. He was the first one. He's a new face. They took a long, long time to get to Kota Ibushi. And then he had some bad injuries that weren't going to take him out, but were certainly going to prevent him from having the high-level matches that he wanted to have for a period of time. And they had stadium shows they had to fill and stuff like that. So Ibushi's out. They moved to Ospreay. Ospreay's a new guy. He's never been world champion. He's the guy they're going to go with. He immediately gets injured on his first defense, essentially a broken neck. So now the third attempt, they're still going with a new guy that hasn't been world champion before. Let's establish the new belt with a new top guy. And we've got Shingo Takagi. I think you have to do one of two things to establish the belt. Because right now, Shingo Takagi is not necessarily established as a world champion right now, but that belt isn't really established that well as a world championship because it changes every time it's defended almost. So Shingo has to either defend that belt a lot, or he has to hold the belt for a long time. And I'm okay with either scenario. I think that he could be one of the guys, like what you're saying. He could do an Ibushi match. He could follow that up with a Cobb match. He could move on to anybody else he wants. They could just defend up and down. He's going to have great matches with Ishii, Sabre, Taichi, a bunch of guys that probably don't stand a chance of beating him anyway. And then down the road sometime, Ospreay comes back for revenge, or maybe they circle back to Ibushi, or they do a long-term program that gets the winner of the G1. Maybe it's Jay White this year, and Jay White takes it off at Wrestle Kingdom. But I think it's got to be a long run, or if it's not a long run, it at least has to have 7 or 8 title defenses. And maybe he does them in quicker succession than most people do.
And I think you and I agree, though, that Ospreay was going to do that.
I think so.
The plans were probably him going up to Wrestle Kingdom with the belt. And I think Shingo is a guy that I could see doing that too. I don't see a quick change. I see him carrying this title regardless of who he wrestles up into Wrestle Kingdom. I think we're going to see the G1 Wrestle Kingdom change.
I think Ospreay was the guy that they wanted to go overseas with. I think that the idea was, we've got this belt on Will. He's a great champion for us for all the reasons that we like champions. And we can bring this guy when the pandemic ends. We can bring him over to the United States. He can wrestle a couple of shows there. He'll draw there because he can talk people into the building. Same thing with the UK and New Zealand and Australia, the other markets that they dabble in. So I think he was really key to their global expansion. Now, Shingo, not as much, but still very well thought of everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting place that you can go, and I know I read allegedly Chris Jericho's contract with New Japan ran out a couple of days ago. But if he came over and did a hot program with him to go back to Tokyo Dome, there's another interesting opponent.
Sure.
I mean, Kenny Omega Shingo is not a match that I would hate either. Like
no, and Shingo came in towards the end of Omega's run.
That's
Shingo
right.
was only there for a minute when Omega was there, and he was in the junior heavyweight division.
Yeah,
So
I think the key is if they bring him over, I think he's going to need a mouthpiece. He's going to need somebody to talk for him, and I don't know who immediately that is. But I would agree. The plan was probably Ospreay coming over and doing a bunch of U.S. dates and things like that, and making it kind of exciting in that way. And he was, I mean, the Starcast that we were at, he was the name that Kenny Omega called out from New Japan that said, this is the guy that I'd like to go. I want to see if he's the real deal. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Now do they just defend the title and stay home? Do we see this Kojimas and Tenzans and different guys like that just headed over occasionally to kind of keep that conversation going, or does it expand and get a little bit more?
Well, it's interesting. The other thing he could do is what you're saying. Maybe he stays home and he said, if he calls his shot and says, I'm going to beat all the former champions or something like that. And he says, okay, here's my list of people. And he starts knocking them off. And then Ospreay comes back at the end. You have all these kinds of things, but he has to do something that we can tie this championship run to and say, look what Shingo accomplished. This is what a world champion looks like.
Yeah. And I see him as a defending champion. I don't see him in this, this Roman Reigns role or whatever, like ducking defenses intentionally. It's not part of his character. He's a workhorse. That's why he's in the position that he's in. So I just don't see him turning down any challenger, no matter who it is. So yeah, I think we're going to see bang, 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 a lot of title defenses. And I mean, you're going to see false finishes. It's New Japan, but I don't see him dropping it right away. And I hope that he ends up coming out of this as big as he could be.
Right. The other thing he has to do is remain healthy, because that has what has plagued all these former champions that we're talking about. They couldn't stay healthy. And, it may be the pandemic era. This match was 36 minutes, and it was one of the shorter world championship matches recently.
Yeah, which is crazy.
So, they work for these long periods of time, and they still do these high angle spots towards the end of matches where they've been wrestling for 35 minutes and they're taking a high angle suplex. So they're tired, maybe make mistakes. They got to keep him healthy, and maybe they shorten those matches down a little bit, and he can wrestle. Look, when he was never champion, he had great matches with Ishii and guys. Those guys were like tied together for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, he can go through all those opponents again as world champion.
Yeah, Ishii would be somebody that would be interesting. Like, speaking of that, I don't see them losing the 6-man matches, not to get too far ahead, but yeah, Ishii would be a hell of an opponent for him because of the history that they have. So I could see him doing a respect challenge to Ishii for sure. And those matches are just always incredible because they're two giant bulls smashing into each other. So,
all right. Well, best of luck to Shingo Takagi. He's got some work cut out for him. He's got to do what Ospreay couldn't, and he got to do what Kota Ibushi couldn't do. Right. He's got to get that title established. So. Yeah, we have a bunch more headlines to get into, and we'll get to them right after this short break where I tell you all the different ways that you can support the show. If you love the Daily Wrestling News Show, then I want to tell you how you can support us. First, check out bodyslamclothes.com. You can get a variety of shirts for just $20, and all of them come in the super soft style, and the price you see includes all sizes and shipping. Get 10% off 2 or more shirts with the promo code SHIRTS10. Go to bodyslamclothes.com right now and check it out. And join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports. The show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And each Tuesday, Al Carl hosts the Essential Wrestling Podcast alongside John Smith, myself, John DeConnie, and Gary Mahaffey. It's another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Here are our analysis on who we think is going to win the week's matches. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And Pro Wrestling Pick'em. It's a place where you can join or host a Pick'em league to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account and join a league now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And the Body Slam Brigade newsletter, currently going out to over 4,200 people each Friday. It consolidates all the top stories in professional wrestling into a quick-to-read email written by me for you for free. Sign up now at BodySlamBrigade.com. And of course, this show, the Daily Wrestling News Show. We're here every day, Monday through Thursday, and occasionally on Friday. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or watch us live on Facebook and YouTube at 10 a.m. This is the Daily Wrestling News Show, and we thank you for your support. Headlines. So when you hear that little jingle, little tune, we're going into the sort of the headline portion of the show where we have a lot of topics to talk about, but we don't spend a lot of time on any of them. So Showbuzz Daily. We talked about this, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago, Travis, where Showbuzz Daily got hacked and they were having problems. They were down for a long time. This is the website that has provided wrestling ratings for years and years. Not only wrestling ratings, but also sports ratings and other things. Well, they had the unfortunate news to update us with that they're dead. In addition to their long ongoing technical issues, they also lost access to their historical data, and their site is officially done. So
pretty crazy.
Yeah, everything hangs by a thread sometimes. So Okay, in other news of things that are not dying but growing or expanding, Peacock will launch on Samsung TVs today. Do you have a Samsung, Travis? Is that the TV provider you have? No?
No, I'm what am I, LG?
LG.
Yeah.
So the Samsung operating system will now have Peacock right there on it. It'll obviously include the WWE Network. So it's just another way for people to consume Peacock.
Does it come with a better way to navigate the site?
I think you're going to get the same experience, maybe worse.
Great.
It's probably not going to have fast forward, and it'll still not have all the stuff the WWE Network had.
Thank God.
So there's that. There is just a fraction of news coming out of Monday Night Raw from last night. Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley will be a Hell in the Cell match now, but if McIntyre loses, he will get no more title shots at Bobby Lashley. Travis, is McIntyre going to win this match?
Oh my gosh, I don't know now. He was pretty convincing with that sword through the table at the contract signing that everybody wanted to see.
Finally, he used the sword after all this time.
I think I'm good. Yeah, I think Drew McIntyre is going to beat Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, they don't have anybody, ready for either of them afterwards. So McIntyre wins the title here, and then Bobby gets his rematch at the next show, Money in the Bank, and on we go.
Maybe it's Drew wins, and then Kofi comes into the Hurt Business, and then MVP throws another Hurt Business guy at Drew later on. They could just pivot and go with Braun Strowman. Wait, they can't.
No.
Go with Braun
Samoa
Strowman.
Joe, though. Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe's up.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Big Show?
No.
Randy Orton, he's very busy today.
Yeah.
AJ Styles, very busy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where you go from here. Drew, are you going to face Jackson Riker? Are you going to go against Elias? Mansoor?
The one thing I will say about Raw,
I guess we're probably going to see Brock SummerSlam maybe.
Yeah.
Or Goldberg SummerSlam.
Yeah, they'll probably bring a name in for sure. They have the same problem on SmackDown, though. They don't really have people ready, so they're probably going to bring in somebody to face both of them. Roman and Bobby / Drew. Other news from Raw, the Viking Raiders became the number one contenders for the Raw Tag Team titles. They did not necessarily announce when that championship match will occur, so it could be at Hell in the Cell, or it could be on Raw next week, might be on Main Event on Wednesday, don't know. And other stuff happened on Raw, but that's the main news. So Mick Foley is coming up next on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions. That's June 20th. That's the same day as the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. It's interesting. I like Mick Foley. He's a great storyteller, as you know from that StarCast we went to. He can really hold the crowd in the palm of his hand. I'm not sure what new stories he has to tell in an interview format like this, but it'll be fun to see Steve and Mick talk. The question that this brings up for me, though, is that it has become their tradition every month on pay-per-view day that they do one of these Broken Skull sessions. Now, WrestleMania, it was Chris Jericho, which was very newsworthy. Survivor Series was The Undertaker, also very newsworthy. I don't remember who Royal Rumble was, but SummerSlam is coming. He needs to have a killer guest. Maybe Brock Lesnar? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I agree with you though. Like Mick has told his same stories 1,000 times, so I'm really curious if we're just going to get a rehash of the same Mick Foley stories over and over and over again, or if we're going to get something fresh from Steve. I hope it's the latter. Who could he get on? I don't know. Bret Hart would be interesting.
Already done it.
Oh, that's right. He did, didn't he?
That might have been Royal Rumble, now that you say that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. That's where I would probably have gone. I don't know. Where could Steve go with that? It should be somebody big. I don't know. Maybe Jeff Hardy? Probably not.
Oh, Jeff, that's probably who Bobby's going to fight next.
That could be. He got the big victory.
He got to win. Yeah, he got to win. Okay. This headline section has been dripping with sarcasm, if you haven't told. Hopefully you didn't tune out. We did have New Japan announce 2 title matches coming up for their Kazuna Road shows on June 22nd and 23rd from Cork and Hall. On the 22nd, we have Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi defending the Never Six-Man titles against Evil, Dick Togo, and Yujiro Takahashi. Now, I would say that this is Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi versus Evil and the 2 jobbers of Bullet Club.
Yeah, this is like Bullet Club D team.
Yeah.
Like literally, like this is like the enhancement talent go round. Like,
right.
Not for nothing, if Jay White and God was not going to beat that Never Six, I don't see this clown show of Bullet Club members doing it either. Like, it's just laughable, really. Kazuna Road might be a sad road.
Yeah, Yoshihashi is he's a fun wrestler, but he is the job guy on Chaos, but he's had the 6-man titles for a long time, so it's kind of like him getting his push at this point.
Is it his thing, the ass gimmick or whatever? Like
his gimmick is get back up, which lets you know he gets knocked down a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
Michelle and Yo are going to defend the junior titles against Taiji Ishimori and ELP. I think this is a little bit more interesting for you. June 23rd. Bullet Club has a stronger chance of walking away.
Yeah, stronger chance, and I don't know. These guys kind of ping-pong the titles back and forth, sort of the way that Techers and GOD's done recently. So we could see ELP and Taiji Ishimori win here. I don't know. This one's a tougher one to call, and I think based on the results here, we'll know whether or not Ishimori might beat Desperado down the road for the junior heavy title. I don't think they're going to have Taiji Ishimori, although he probably deserves it, holding 2 belts at the same time.
Yeah, not right at the moment, I don't think. So those are that's down the road. That's about 16 days away, 15 and 16 days away, respectively, to those 2 shows. There's not another New Japan show for 7 days, or 6 now, 7 days from yesterday.
Right.
So the New Japan Strong show on Friday, they have that, but there's no core New Japan product until next week.
Hiromu Takahashi's back, which has been like the headline of my New Japan career since I've started watching. Like about every 6 months, I get to hear that Hiromu Takahashi's coming back. The guy's made out of, I don't know, peanut brittle or something at this point.
Well, I think holding himself together with duct tape and paper clips, I think is what
Yeah. So who knows what, he's always interesting. He's always in the mix. They try to hot shot him into the title picture every single time he comes back. Somebody has an immense amount of faith in the man, and I don't know. He just never looks super impressive to me for the juniors. Like he's rarely does he look like he's in good shape to me.
I think when he's healthy, he's amazing.
Sure.
Now to your point, there's been a lot of times when he's not been healthy, but man.
Yeah, and maybe that's my view of him, right? Like I don't think I've seen him at his best, and maybe if I go back and I watch some older New Japan stuff, but yeah, in the last 2 or 3 years in New Japan, he has never looked super impressive. And I'm thinking back to the ELP match that he had kind of when ELP came back, and both of them looked not great, which is a weird thing to say for ELP because that was his first match back too, I think. And yeah, just hopefully it gets better.
That was Wrestle Kingdom Night 1, January 4th, 2021. Yeah. Yep. So outside of New Japan, though, Matt Cardona picked a fight with Nick Gage over the weekend. Al Carl and I talked about that briefly yesterday, but it looks like, based on what Matt Cardona is putting out on Twitter and whatnot, that he will challenge Nick Gage for the GCW championship in Atlantic City at Homecoming. I think our theories were that it might be in Chicago, Labor Day weekend, but it looks like it's going to be in Atlantic City. So
yeah,
Matt Cardona, such a weird challenger.
So smart move by Matt. Matt's really good with his social media presence. He is certainly the prettiest person that's ever walked down to the ring in GCW, which the fans immediately have heat for him. Yep. If he does get a pizza cutter to the face, the roof is going to explode off of that. It's a smart move by Cardona right now with Nick Gage because of all the dark side stuff. So he's obviously a hot topic and stuff like that. But man, do I see him going through glass tables and light tubes and all that other stuff? He is super, super pretty. It is not the style of match that I would see him doing. Thinking about Zack Ryder days and different things like that, and it is a odd dance partner, but you know what? It might just work.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, all the power to Matt Cardona for giving something a try. Maybe he'll love it. Maybe he's got a history of doing this stuff that I'm not aware of. As far as I know, he's pretty much been a WWE guy his whole career. Super
clean, super polished, which is the other reason why there was so much heat. Hopefully he wears the same gear he was out on this weekend because he was covered from head to toe in like a druid outfit, and that's probably good for him. But I don't know, maybe he's got an itch for that deathmatch style stuff, but you're not going to get, a lot of technical wrestling out of Nick Gage, and it's not going to happen, especially with as much calling his shot and stuff like that has happened back and forth between the two of them. Like Cardona, took it to him, and GCW, which is different than other wrestling, has this. They're tough. They're actually, they're lunatics. They're crazy people. Alex Colon, congratulations to him for winning his third tournament over the weekend too. Just insane lunatics. But it's like there's a certain ladder and rung, and if you're coming in from the outside of that and stuff like that, it's like you got to take your lumps, kid, kind of thing. So I don't know what they got worked out, but I wouldn't want to be Matt Cardona.
No. I could think of a lot of other wrestlers I'd get in the ring before Nick Gage.
Nick Gage is not on the top of my list.
No.
I'll take a Minoru Suzuki chop over like 5 minutes with Nick Gage, really.
Yes. 30 seconds. I don't want to be anywhere near that guy.
It's just crazy.
All right. So that's the headlines. I do want to let people know what's coming up tonight on NXT. In case you've missed the announcements, Killian Dane will face Isaiah Swerve Scott. This is defending Drake Maverick's honor. Austin Theory versus Oni Lorcan. Ember Moon versus Dakota Kai. Ted DiBiase has a priceless announcement. There will be a face-off between Karrion Kross, Adam Cole, Pete Dunne, Johnny Gargano, and Kyle O'Reilly. This is the go-home show for NXT TakeOver in your house. Poppy will be on the show as well. So
a little yawny, I think, for a go-home show. Not a lot of pop there to it. I'm sort of surprised that there isn't a little bit more oomph to it, and I'm kind of surprised that Frankie Monet doesn't have a match on the In Your House, but I guess we're doing maybe a slow build with her. So
yeah, maybe she'll get involved somewhere on tonight's show, but you're right. I don't think we're going to get her on the show this weekend.
And it's not like she needs a bunch of ring time to get in there to have a match.
No. She's ready. She may need to work their style a little bit more.
Yeah.
Throw her on a pay-per-view. But on Dynamite this week, Travis is on the show, so I always like to talk about Dynamite a little bit. We have a very big TNT championship match between Miro and Evil Uno. Lance Archer will be in action. Cody has a big announcement. We're going to hear from the Pinnacle, Christian Cage versus Angelico, the Young Bucks and Brandon Cutler versus Pac, Penta, El Zero Miedo, and Eddie Kingston, Hangman Page and Preston Vance versus Will Hobbs and Brian Cage, Darby Allin and Sting will make an announcement.
Yeah, that Angelico Christian Cage match, if you're tuning in for one thing, I bet you that one steals the show.
And it's
That's
Friday night again.
It's Friday night again, so I mean, they don't have a lot to go against. The last 2 Friday shows have sucked, so hopefully this one's definitely better because the Friday shows have been awful.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe I've already been watching SmackDown for 2 hours and I'm tired by the time I get
I'm
to
not even
Monday,
watching
but
SmackDown and tuning in fresh, and it's just the show has felt flat, which thank God they had that amazing pay-per-view in between all that because
Yeah.
boy, would I be put off by the product right now.
And then later this month is the June 26th special Saturday show where they have the Jungle Boy challenges for the AW World Championship. So
Yeah, that show should be good.
all right, Travis, anything else on your list for the day?
I don't have anything. I did. I know MLW finished their drafts up last week, so it looks like they've got a nice tight roster over there. So there's some interesting signings over there. We got to see Aramis, who was phenomenal at those GCW shows, a great lucha. I wish they would have grabbed Ira Strange when he was there as well. And who knows, maybe he'll come as part of that package. But it does look like that whole group, it's almost like a troupe of lucha wrestlers is going to end up being in Chicago for the GCW shows and stuff like that. So, maybe we'll get to catch a little bit of that, but I don't know. Other than that, I'm excited. You and I actually got to text about travel plans for upcoming AEW shows, which used to be a really fun ritual 2 years ago. And like now it's nice that it's kind of coming back. So we get to, fill in the seats for some of those tickets that we've been holding on to for quite a while. But other than that, I don't know. The Strong has been nice and quiet and good. And ROH announced Baltimore show, I think, too. So that should be exciting.
All promotions are back in July. Impact's back with fans in July. ROH is back with fans in July. MLW is back in July. WWE, obviously, if you didn't hear, they're going back on the road. And AEW is going back on the road same time. So
yeah, it's going to be really interesting with fans coming back. I think it's probably going to help the WWE product hopefully the most. I would say that the promotion that made the most headway during this time off or used the time off without fans the best, I would say, is Impact establishing itself a little bit better. We'll see what kind of, no pun intended, impact the fans have on Impact when they come back.
I will say Slammiversary had limited tickets, so it wasn't like they're going to fill the place to capacity, but it'll be the first time they've had fans since the pandemic started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So still excited about fans coming back, and hopefully that'll have some impact on the creative over at WWE, because I'll tell you what, that finish in Raw last night, if you had a live fans there, they would have been pounding on that box office door because
it's interesting because I don't think they would have had. There's been a lot of finishes to Raw recently where I don't think they would have done that if there were fans, because the end of Raw, I believe, in an arena full of fans, is going to have something happen in the ring at the finish, whether that's an interview segment or a run-in or just a match concludes. So when you have stuff that ends in the back stage area, I don't see that happening when fans come back. So something will be different about creative, I think. But yes, I'm sure Shayna Baszler was screaming, and so were you, and so was everybody else. So
get well soon, Raw.
For Travis, I'm Ryan. We'll see you next time.